Yes, good day to all our viewers. This is AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. So, airing every Wednesdays from 7 to 8 in the evening. So, I'm here on location today in Tennessee, USA. And joining me today is Ms. Rasha Tawani from the College of Geosciences, Natural Resources, and Agriculture. So, we'll be discussing about her field of study. So, please stay tuned and stand by. Hello, Rashna. Can you please give some greetings to our viewers for today?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Rashna Tiwari, and I'm really delighted to be talking to everybody here. And it's a pleasure to be talking to Dr. April here. And I'm really excited to be sharing some thoughts about what we do here and some thoughts about our area of work. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, Rashna, for today. So I'm really so interested to find out about your field of study, which is more on the agriculture sciences. So when you were a young person, what kind of interest did you have? And how and when did you actually decide that you wanted to pursue this particular field of study?
Sure. So I grew up in India, and I'm originally from India too, in North India. So typically, just as a young kid, my dad and my family, everybody, we used to go on these vacations to some, rural places. Typically, they are really pretty vacation spots. But then we did see a lot of agriculture in that area, and we did realize that it's an important part of people's livelihoods. So I think I was curious ever since I was a little kid. But as I grew up, I found a little bit more about the field, and I thought it was a great area to learn a little bit more about as it affects people in general. It's important for survival, and it's a great way to contribute to the society if we work in this area. So that's how I got interested.
So did you have like any influences from your mentors, teachers, or other people that you met when you were growing up?
Sure, definitely. Teachers from school, they had their. I grew up in a small town, not a really big town in India, but I went to a Catholic school there also. So there were quite a few teachers and some nuns who talked about, overall just how important it is to look at people who always may be in need of resources, and how it's important to be kind, and it's important to share. So I think that was an important lesson I learned as a young girl. And as I grew up, I thought this was an important way to look at life, and also think about some ways that you can contribute to the society. And that's why I thought agriculture would be one way, because you can really work with people who produce the resources for other people in the society.
So what kind of experiential learnings, skills, or proficiencies do you think young people should develop in order to be in the field of agriculture sciences?
So one of the earliest things I think it's important to realize is that where does our food come from? These days there's a lot of information on the internet. There's a lot of information in newspapers, and of course a lot of social media as well. But a lot of times people are sometimes not really clear as to what and how our food is produced. So I think it's important to see that connection, that there is a very important route that bridges the people that produce the food and all the way to the consumer. So I think that's important for young people to understand, even as little kids, which can start from school. Those teachers can play an important role there. Parents can play an important role there. Just anybody who is involved in the upbringing of kids, they can talk to them about these kinds of subjects, that wherever food is produced, how important it is, and how the world runs on it.
Yes. So can you please tell us about your career trajectory, like how you began to be involved first and foremost with agriculture sciences, and then eventually to decide that you wanted to join the academic community?
Sure. So I started with my undergraduate in agriculture just because I was interested in it. And in India, there's, three or four different areas. Once you finish your high school, you either start looking for appearing into medical school examinations or engineering.
But very popular
Very
in
popular,
India.
yes. But I thought, okay, this might be an interesting choice. So let's go ahead and, start something with in that area. So I did complete my undergraduate in agriculture. And then I got an MBA in agribusiness, also from India.
Yes.
And then I worked about 2 years in a corporate bank there with the rural agribusiness division.
So this was a development loans and financing.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Mhm.
More of the liability products,
Mhm.
but then I did develop some products on the asset side also,
Mhm.
based on when I was working there.
Mhm.
And as I completed about 2 years, a few of my friends who were, and this was still in India, a few of my friends who were in the United States,
Mhm.
they introduced me to a professor in West Texas A&M University in Canyon, Texas,
Mhm.
and they were suggesting that if I was interested in the field of agriculture, taking it forward,
Yes.
there is this professor who is looking for some students. So think about it, if you would like to talk to him. So I just contacted him, and our interests matched. He was working in the area of water management and food security,
Mhm.
and I thought that was a really interesting area also to me. So we talked, and then I quit my job, and I came here to do my master's again.
Mhm.
So
And this was specifically for the hydro management.
yes, water management
Yes.
in Texas, specifically in Texas. So he had several funded projects, and he
Mhm.
was hiring graduate students. So
Mhm.
that's how I moved to the US at that time and started my master's program.
Mhm.
And once I did start my master's program, I was then introduced to my to be a future advisor for my PhD program through the master's program at Texas Tech University. And he offered me a fellowship in the PhD program, and again in the area of water management, but more so on the impact of climate change on agriculture and water management. So that's how I got into the research side. And as I was, completing my graduate school there, I got an opportunity to teach.
And how did you like that?
I really enjoyed it. I did not know how it would go, but it was really fun being in the classroom. I
Yes.
started teaching agricultural marketing, farm management, and of course, my a basic training helped with that,
Yes.
because I did have a background in agriculture at the undergraduate level. So thanks to my mentors, my PhD advisors, and my teachers in the graduate program, I got that experience of teaching, and that's how I thought this would be a great way to start looking into academic careers. So as I finished my PhD, that was something that I started leaning toward, and then I introduced. Then I got introduced to UT Martin as my first job.
So what kind of researches have you been conducting or have conducted at the University of Tennessee Martin so far?
Okay, so here primarily this is a 4-year undergraduate institution. So the primary focus of most professors is obviously teaching, because we do have that as the primary mission of the university.
Yes.
But I was fortunate to work with some wonderful colleagues and mentors here at the department, and we put together some grant proposals, which we were again fortunate to have funded.
Yes.
So in the past, I have been working with at least 3 different agriculture and climate change related projects and in renewable energy.
Yes. And of course, with these areas of research that you have conducted, so how do you link that now specifically with what you have here in Tennessee, which is like a specialization in the University of Tennessee Martin, and also if you had some more connection with your home country in India?
Sure. So one of the areas that I was really interested in is how climate change impacts agriculture, as I said. It's also something that I specialized in my PhD program. So very recently, one of the projects that we got funded was a project that involved outreach, education, as well as teaching in the area of climate change education. So as part of this project, we have been able to get involved with high school educators in this area of Tennessee. But at the same time, we have also had a chance to collaborate with some larger schools in the country, like Pennsylvania State, and they have a lot of connections. So they have this huge conference, which is called the Global Learning in Agriculture. So I'm really hoping that in the next couple of years, we will again continue to enhance and expand this project and connect with the global community, and probably even to countries like India, maybe Africa, and all the countries that they have partners with, and try to expand some of our outreach programs by connecting with educators, scientists, and then try to come up with some ideas on how we can come up with some solutions for food security and
of course, because one of the specific concerns that we have right now is the international community's concern on climate change, and of course that impacts a lot of countries, like for example our home country, the Philippines, which really is burning the brunt now of a lot of climate change impact. So what do you think are the skills, competencies, or proficiencies that young people should develop or have at the moment if they wanted to be in the field of agriculture sciences, or even specifically about climate change?
Okay. So one of the things that I always go by is, I think information and knowledge is power. So it's important to get your facts right. I think before we make an opinion about, whether climate change is even real or not, which is kind of the biggest debate in several places, I think one of the most important things one can do is go back to the right resources. So one of the best resources to go to learn about climate change is IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They have reports, they have, information, and it's a well-established organization that has scientific facts that you can go back and read and find proof that this is happening. So one of the first things would be to establish and to understand why climate change is happening. The second would be to look at impacts. And one of the most vulnerable communities would be people involved in agriculture, because it is directly related to impacts of the climate on food production, food security, and, countries like India, the Philippines, Bangladesh, people who are living in the coastal area, they're really seeing it firsthand, because they're seeing submergence issues, they're seeing too much rain, and all kinds of other issues with crops. So I think that's where we should start. And even with younger people who might be interested, they might want to learn more about it, get themselves more awareness on the topic.
Yes, you mentioned about high school education being influenced, if possible, by educators who have some exposure to environmental sciences or climate change.
Yes.
So what advice can you give now to young people if eventually they would want to explore and be interested in the field of agriculture sciences for their future field of study and maybe their careers?
I think one of the best advice that I probably from my personal experience is go and talk to your teachers and people that you feel are contributing to this cause in the society where you live. And that could be anybody. It could be a teacher in your school. It could also be a community organization. It could be maybe even a farmers market or something where people are working towards food security issues, or just anybody who can give you information in that area. It doesn't have to be a very scientific organization or something like that. Just anybody who can give you accurate information. So, and obviously we can talk to all these agencies and the schools and the educators, and that's where they can start. And if they're interested in projects that are related to climate change or food security, they can start with getting information about that from obviously their schools, and then also from the universities. Or the universities in most areas are pretty open to the conversation. I know at least in our area, we are really, really open to helping teachers. And it has been a really good partnership with some local schools here, where teachers are interested in giving their students early exposure to the area of climate change and food security. So that's a great place to start, I guess.
So one of the initiatives that we're trying to start here at the University of Tennessee Martin, because of the specialization in agricultural sciences in this university, is of course an initiative with the Philippines, which I believe probably might involve you in the future, especially because it impacts environmental sciences and climate change specifically. And as you've mentioned, that your specialization is in water management, so hydro. There's a lot of, as you know, water in the Philippines, in and around. So I believe that it would be very interesting to develop like some of the areas that we are going to be interested to initiate in the future.
Sure.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to your possible involvement in the future. So it was so nice to actually have you with us today, Rashna. So it's really very heartening to see that there's much that we could do together, and to have like international relations be strengthened through the university and of course to educators. So our program is specifically geared towards the education sector. So maybe you can give last few words to our stakeholders in the education sectors, our students, parents, administrators, faculty members, and all those who are interested in improving our education.
Sure. And again, it's a pleasure to talk about this topic. And, this is something which I'm really passionate about. We recently just wrapped up a conference last week with high school educators in this area in Kentucky and Tennessee. And it was an it was a delightful experience working with them. So I think one of the things I would say is please feel free to reach out. Don't hesitate to reach out to people like us or people in your area. I think this is an important cause that will need global partnerships. It will need local partnerships, and it will need a lot of coming together of people to solve issues like that. So it's important to forge those partnerships early on and get information. There's so much information out there, so make use of those resources. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to people who might be interested in this area to help you. So I think that's something I would leave them with.
Okay, thank you so much, Rashna, and we look forward to meeting you again very soon, hopefully in the Philippines when we do have our projects together. Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
we'll be right back. We're back in AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. So it's a pleasure to be meeting again with another expert on the geosciences, specifically on plant sciences. So I'm joined here by Dr. Isaac Lepcha of the University of Tennessee Martin from the Faculty of Agriculture, Geosciences, and Natural Resources. Can you please give some greetings to our viewers for today, Isaac?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Isaac Lepcha, and I'm a lecturer in the Department of Ag, Geoscience, and Natural Resource. I am a lecturer of Plant and Soil Science, and I'm very delighted to be here today with Dr. April.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. A very nice day today on
Uh-huh.
location here at the university. So we're so interested first and foremost because of your background. So let me ask you specifically, like, when did you actually develop an interest? Well, basically about like plants or even geosciences. Do you remember how and when, as a young person, did you find out about your interest and possibly aptitude on the field?
Sure, yeah. Well, I grew up in a farm, and we still own a farm. So
So
I grew
this
up,
is in
yeah,
Bhutan,
in
you know.
Bhutan.
It's
So,
always said to be the happiest place on the earth.
so I grew up in a farm, and we still own a farm,
Yes.
so we grew up in an orchard, and my parents they still farm, and I think I was quite fortunate to have this logical progression
Yes.
to take up undergrad studies in agriculture. So I think that's when I really got interested in studying agriculture,
Yes.
and it automatically progressed into higher studies in agriculture as well. So,
And specifically because you were involved in agriculture sciences and then this geosciences and specifically on plants, what particular plants, firstly from your home country, were like the main commodities or products? And then eventually, how did you expand that to eventually join the academic field?
well, my country is most geographically they are located in a temperate region, so we have
Yes.
mostly temperate crops, and in fruits we have apples and
So that's why you would
peaches
have
and
an
all.
orchard.
And then in the south we have a small area where we have orange orchard.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I didn't take up studying these food, our native orchard crops or any
Yes.
food crops. So I
Mhm.
went on studying forage crops.
Okay.
So I studied forage agronomy.
I see. And why specifically forest agronomy?
Well, so back home, during winter, that is the time when there's a scarcity of forage for
Yes.
animals.
Exactly.
And so after my undergrad, I went back to work with the Department of Livestock, and they put me under an agronomy department
Yes.
to look after the pasture production and the extension activities of the pasture production. And that is when I realized how the farmers, they are always worried about their winter fodder production,
Exactly.
and it's in the very coldest part of one of the coldest part of the world. So
Exactly.
winter forest production
Mountains.
was quite hard.
Yes.
And that's when I realized, well, maybe I should do something to make winter food available.
So particularly in your field of study, because then you went into the research and the fields of study. So specifically, what sort of technologies did you want to actually introduce in terms of like your studies
Yes.
and innovations?
Yeah. So very specifically, I realized how small, I mean, not only my country, there are very small countries in the world, and then how land is very
Precious.
precious, right?
Yes.
And we cannot grow too many crops. We
Yes.
can. So I was particularly interested in integrating more than one crop in a same piece of land. So that
Yes.
way we make use of the land to the maximum, and that
Yes.
way we also make use of the resources to the optimum level.
Yes. So I think that's one interesting field, because now you're talking about not monocropping, but multi-cropping.
Yes.
And so because you've mentioned also to me about the opportunity that you had, which is to visit the Philippines. And as you know, in the Philippines, we really started out as a commodity-based agricultural country. And because of the depletion of the natural resources, so eventually we had to seek some innovations in terms of like multi-cropping. So can you please tell us about your career trajectory insofar as this is concerned, and your fields of study and researches right now?
So I started with studying agriculture, so general agriculture, so
Yes,
field
of course.
crops and water management, fertility management, soil management, organic, and also there's a very general
Yes.
study. So
Yes.
then I wanted to study masters in the Netherlands, so I took
Yes.
up a specific field, so
Because
crop
they're
science.
the world expert in terms of botany,
Yeah,
botanical science.
and
Yes.
yes, and then I took up studying plant science with a specialization in crop science. So I
Yes.
took up studying intercropping.
Yes.
So that's when I was, I mean, exposed to a lot of intercropping strategies, intercropping technologies. So I was sent to the US from the Netherlands to do my master's thesis, and then from there I took up really studying into integrating more than one crop in a piece of land.
And
Yeah.
specifically, your interest when you did your dissertation in the United States, what
Yes.
was that specifically?
So the specific was forest production in the dryland areas.
Okay.
Like the southern part of the U.S. is scarce. There's a lot of scarcity of water, and a lot of projects are coming up to study how we can incorporate
Yes.
at least two species so they can use the same amount of resources and the
Yes.
same piece of land. And that way I started studying a grass component and a legume component. So they are compatible.
Yes.
The grass, it will give a lot of biomass, and
Yes,
the
and
legume
legumes
component,
is-
it has a capacity or ability to fix,
Yeah.
nitrogen
Yeah,
from the
that-
atmosphere,
yes.
and that will, provide fertility to the soil and the
Yes.
grass component. So yeah, that was one of my focused area.
And your fields of research currently, what kind of researches are you actually pursuing now and maybe in the future?
Yes, so I joined UT Martin in 2018. So it's been just 2.5 years, I should say, and I haven't had much. I haven't had done much researches in my field for the last 2 years. But
Yes.
besides my field, I mean, teaching, we also had the opportunity to write a grant, and recently we got a grant
Specifically for what research?
for our forage research. So here in the southern part of the U.S., we have not shortage, but we have some shortage of forages during summer.
Yes, because of
So
scarcity
of water,
yes.
and some of the species that are grown here are not suitable with the temperature that is there in the summer. So if summer is really hot,
Yes.
and we have a cool season species as a pasture, as a forage. So the cool season species doesn't grow very well during the summer. So our grant is looking at we'll be looking at some of the annual forages that can be cultivated during summer, and then we can make the forage available throughout the summer season. So that will be our project that starts next spring.
Yes.
And then that will end probably by the end of 2024.
I see. So just for 2 years.
2 years.
Because in 2019, what had happened is that the US and the Philippine government had signed a strategic dialogue for innovative collaboration in higher education. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at, priority areas of agriculture sciences. And specifically for University of Tennessee Martin, we might look into root crop agriculture, because that's like one of the areas that we have in the Philippines, as you know. But there are certain areas in our country that are either drought. They experience drought because of the scarcity of the water,
Mhm.
or they experience a lot of rainfall because there's lots of monsoons or typhoons and flooding. So I think this is one particular area that we may have in common,
Mhm.
possibility for research. So we might be really interested to work together with you, to Martin, and specifically on your end to develop this kind of like research or
Mhm. Yeah.
program, because
Yeah.
it's really very interesting about your background and the opportunities, I think.
Mhm.
For us in the Philippines. So can you also tell us a little bit about like what were your impressions when you had the opportunity to join us? And specifically because we come from the University of Pasig City,
Mhm.
one of the innovators insofar as the environmental protection of the Philippines is concerned.
Mhm.
Yes, can you give us like some of your impressions about your country when you had the opportunity to visit
You mean the
us?
Philippines?
Yes.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to visit Philippines and specifically Pasig City.
Yes.
So we were a group of 15 people, and we were under the team that was looking after the National Greenhouse Gas Inventory
Yes.
project.
Mhm.
So that was kind of directed from the Stockholm
Yes.
Climate Center, I guess. So
Yes.
yeah, and then we're visiting the Pasig City, where I think they had where Pasig City is the center of the climate change
Mhm.
things, or the office of the climate change. And
Yes.
then, uh, well, we were really impressed about the things that the cities in particular they were carrying out in terms of how to control the greenhouse gas emissions. I think
Mhm.
if I remember correctly, I think there were some small projects that were carried out to
Mhm.
make the local community aware of
Mhm.
the greenhouse gas emission,
Mhm.
and then how that could be really that's a problem. Greenhouse gas is a problem, but
Yes.
they also found some of the solutions to capture those gases and how they can utilize it
Mhm.
for the benefits of the community. I think those were some of the small projects which really impressed us, and then we could go back to our country
Mhm.
and disseminate those the technologies, and probably we even started doing small projects back home as well. So
Mhm.
taking the model from the
Yes.
Philippines
Mhm.
and then going back home.
So I think one of the innovations really I think for those of us in developing countries is that even with little resources, it is possible to optimize impact and possible influence
Mhm.
through innovation and
Right.
creativity. So I think this is something that we would like to see
Mhm.
for like the young people. So in terms of like your field of study, what sort of like proficiencies and skills do you think young people should develop if they wanted to be in your field of study?
Well, if you are, so if, I mean, I don't know what stage in your life you will be able to, get to see the
Mhm.
agricultural, the real agricultural production,
Yes.
in the field.
Mhm.
But I would say, now we have a lot of information around.
Yes.
We see everything on the internet, and the first thing to start with would be to visit your nearest agricultural community,
Yes.
and then visit not only the market,
Mhm.
but try to link that market to where it is coming from, and
Mhm.
visit those, and look at these people, how
Mhm.
they are working, and to
Yes.
get your hands on, even if you
Mhm.
like to. I think that's the starting point, and
Just the
then
exposure, right?
exposure, yeah,
Mhm.
and be aware
Mhm.
of the situation around.
Mhm.
The awareness is very important, I guess, with your
Mhm.
hands on things, and you make yourself aware of the things, and I think that's my personal
Mhm.
opinion, where the younger generation or the young people should start with.
Mhm. Because we also want to, of course, influence the young people in a
Mhm.
positive way when
Positive,
they are
yeah.
making their decision,
Uh-huh.
whatever field of study they might be exploring or they might be thinking about. So we wanted to have this opportunity to give some accurate information to young
Exactly.
people through our program, and
Right.
also maybe to influence them so that they may be on the path of the right
Right.
direction.
Yes.
So it was really such a pleasure to have you with us today, Isaac. So we hope that you'll be able to have the opportunity again to develop programs with us and visit the Philippines again and more. Especially, we mentioned about the root crop program that we're interested in, of course, in relation to climate change and environmental protection. So, what last words would you like for our stakeholders in the education sector to take away from our conversation today?
Well, I would just say, you know, if you are an adult, just and if your focus area is in agriculture, well, of course, I mean, that should be, then teach your younger generation about it, right?
Yes.
Give them the first-hand knowledge. And if you are a young adult, then just go around,
Yes.
visit your nearest community, farming community, and get hands-on those learning activities, and then and if there are any obstacles or any questions that or any doubts that you have pertaining to certain processes or certain production practices, why is it doing that way? How is it done? And if you have your adults, you have your teachers, and even if they are not able to solve your problems, then you should be able to contact one of us. Now we are available all the time, and probably Dr. April will have our contacts. And if you really want to contact us in our specific field with your specific questions, we are always available. Okay, so it was really pleasure to be here and talking to you. I hope my talk makes sense to you all, and I thank you all, and I thank you, Dr. April, for giving me this opportunity to talk to your audiences.
Yes, so that was Dr. Isaac Lepcha. Thank you so much for giving us your valuable time for today. So this is Attorney Amian April Alcazar for AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. So we'll be back on Wednesday from 7 to 8 in the evening. So join us again